Moving into Autumn Hills felt like the start of something wonderful for my family. My name is Daniel Carpenter, and I'm an agent in the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specifically part of the Hostage Rescue Team, HRT. Most of our new neighbors had no idea I worked for the FBI, and that suited me just fine. My wife, Rebecca, and our 12-year-old daughter, Chloe, were excited to trade our cramped city apartment for the wide, tree-lined streets of this suburban community. The neighborhood looked idyllic: manicured lawns, pristine sidewalks, and a small park right at the center. A grand, wrought iron gate marked the entrance to Autumn Hills. Flower beds along the curbs seemed meticulously tended, as if each flower's bloom date and color scheme had been planned months in advance. Everything was orchestrated to perfection, almost too perfect. A large sign near the gate read, "Welcome to Autumn Hills, proudly managed by Autumn Hills Homeowners Association." In small letters at the bottom of that sign was another plaque. HOA President, Ms. Pamela Barnett, nickname, Karen. When we first drove in, I barely noticed the sign. Frankly, all I cared about was that Chloe would finally have a yard to play in, a safe neighborhood for riding her bike, and a good school within a short bus ride. That first afternoon, as we unloaded the moving van, we were greeted by an elderly couple from next door, the Jennings. They were pleasant people. Mr. Jennings offered to help move boxes, while Mrs. Jennings brought over a plate of home-baked cookies. They made it clear that Autumn Hills residents mostly got along quite well. "Of course," Mrs. Jennings said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "You do have Ms. Barnett to watch out for." "Who's Ms. Barnett?" Rebecca asked, confused. "I think I saw the name on a sign." Mr. Jennings rolled his eyes. "She's the head of the HOA. Everyone calls her Karen behind her back. Well, you'll see soon enough." We learned soon enough that Pamela Barnett, Karen, took her HOA duties very seriously. Indeed, sometimes, neighbors whispered she took them a bit too seriously. She could be overbearing, arrogant, and always insisted on having the final say about almost everything. But for the moment, we shrugged off the Jennings' cautionary remarks. We had a house to furnish, furniture to arrange, and many boxes to unpack. The warm glow of new home optimism filled our hearts. The next morning, the crisp autumn sunshine poured through the windows, and birds chirped in the newly planted sycamore outside our front yard. Rebecca busied herself sorting out decorations for the living room, while I headed out to check the mail and see if the moving van had damaged any portion of our driveway. Chloe was at her new friend's house across the street, excited to have met a girl her age within just a few hours of our arrival. As I stepped onto our porch, a voice called out, "Good morning, new neighbor." I turned to see a woman in her mid-50s striding up the sidewalk. She had impeccable posture, short chestnut-colored hair that curled neatly around her ears, and wore a fitted floral blouse with pressed khaki pants. She clutched a black binder emblazoned with the Autumn Hills HOA logo. Her expression was pleasant enough at first glance, but there was a sharpness in her eyes I couldn't quite place. "Hello," I responded politely. "You must be." She thrust out her hand. "I'm Ms. Barnett, but everyone calls me Pamela. I'm the head of the Homeowners Association here, so let me be the first to officially welcome you to Autumn Hills." Her handshake was brisk, more of a firm press and release than a friendly greeting. I decided to match her directness. "I'm Daniel Carpenter. My wife, Rebecca, is inside, and our daughter, Chloe, is visiting a friend down the street." "Lovely," she said, pursing her lips. "I wanted to stop by personally to ensure you understood the community guidelines." She held the binder against her chest and tapped it meaningfully. "We have very specific covenants, conditions, and restrictions here. Our standards are high, but that's what keeps property values up and the neighborhood in tip-top shape. I trust you'll read the entire packet I left by your door last night." I blinked. I did see something about that. I haven't had a chance to dive in yet. "Well, no time like the present," she said, smile thin. "You'll see we don't allow certain paint colors on exteriors. We have rules about lawn maintenance, and absolutely no unapproved modifications to the landscaping, especially in front yards. A house is the biggest investment most people will ever make. Our mission is to protect that investment for everyone." The subtext was not lost on me. She had sized me up in less than 30 seconds, and I could practically feel her suspicion. A hidden part of me, the FBI side that picks up on subtle body language, noticed her arms were crossed just enough to hint at a controlling nature. Her polished nails tapped the binder impatiently. "I'll be sure to read it," I said. "Thank you for dropping by." "Oh," she said, snapping her binder open. "Also, I saw that your daughter left her bicycle in your driveway overnight. We have a rule about vehicles or personal items blocking the driveway or sidewalk. You'll need to store that in your garage after use. Safety first." "Of course," I said, even though it bothered me to be lectured about a bicycle on day one. "We'll make sure to keep the driveway clear." "Thank you," she said, flashing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Please don't hesitate to come to me with any questions. I pride myself on being available to all residents." With that, she turned on her heel and marched off, binder in hand. As she walked away, I could sense her scanning our property from top to bottom, searching for any other potential violations. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. If that was her opening gambit, I had no illusions that dealing with Karen would be a walk in the park. Little did I know that her interference in our lives would grow from mild annoyance to full-blown nightmare in the weeks to come. Over the next few days, we settled in. While I spent my work hours commuting to the FBI field office or traveling for training sessions, Rebecca focused on making the house a home. Chloe made new friends. One of them was the Jennings granddaughter who visited often, and another was a girl named Erin Chan who lived 3 doors down. Erin's mother, Monica Chan, was kind and welcoming, frequently inviting Chloe over for afternoon snacks. But throughout our early days in Autumn Hills, Karen made her presence known at every turn. One afternoon, she appeared on our doorstep again with a polite but clipped question about whether we intended to restain our fence. Another time, she emailed us a reminder about the upcoming HOA meeting, strongly suggesting that all new residents attend to familiarize themselves with the ongoing issues in the community. Her tone was never overtly rude, but always carried an undercurrent of judgment that set my teeth on edge. One morning, as I was leaving for work, I spotted a neon-colored sticky note plastered on our mailbox. Written in large, bold letters were the words, "Mailbox color violation. Must be repainted to HOA-approved palette by next inspection." I stared at the mailbox. It was standard black metal. Normal. Pristine. I frowned, ripping the note off and tossing it in the trash inside our garage. Another neon note had been stuck to the side of the garage door. "Planter box needs repainting. HOA bylaw hashtag 3.1.7. I rubbed my forehead in frustration. This was just petty. We had barely gotten ourselves unpacked, and now we were saddled with repainting a mailbox and a planter box? At work, my partner, Agent Lucy Morales, was all ears as I shared some of the Karen stories. She found them both amusing and exasperating. "I swear," she said during a lunch break, "some of these HOA people are on a power trip. But it's usually petty stuff, right?" That's what I thought. But something about Karen rubs me the wrong way. I admit it. She has this controlling presence, like she enjoys lording over everyone. I can't shake the feeling that she's crossing boundaries. Lucy shrugged. "Well, keep your cool. Don't let her get to you." I tried to do just that, but as the weeks went by, the friction only grew. We began getting official-looking letters in our mailbox, courtesy of the HOA, reminding us that our front flower bed was out of compliance because we had too many shade plants in an area requiring partial sun plants. Another letter explained that we had parked our car too far over the sidewalk line one evening, infringing on pedestrian paths. Each notice carried a warning that repeated infractions could lead to fines. Rebecca was deeply bothered. "It's not like we're ignoring the rules," she lamented, pacing the living room. "It feels like we're being singled out." I couldn't deny it. The Jennings told us Karen rarely harassed them, but they also implied that they had lived there so long and abided by every rule so carefully that Karen had little to latch onto. The neighbors on our other side, the Rileys, admitted that Karen had targeted them in the past until they pushed back. "She loves to mess with newcomers," Mr. Riley told me. "You just have to stand your ground." Still, I was determined to keep a low profile. My job was sensitive, and I didn't want drama in my personal life. If Karen was just a busybody with an overblown sense of authority, I'd do my best to keep the peace. But how long could we go on like this without snapping? About a month into our residence, the Autumn Hills HOA announced upcoming elections for various board positions. The entire community was abuzz. Karen, as the incumbent president, was running for re-election, of course, but rumor had it there was growing dissatisfaction among residents. The rumor mill suggested a group of homeowners planned to nominate a challenger. Rebecca and I had no intention of getting involved. We were still the new family on the block, and I was busy enough with FBI matters. But life has a funny way of roping people into unexpected roles. One weekend, a small group of neighbors knocked on our door. Leading them was Aaron Mills, a soft-spoken, middle-aged engineer with a teenage son. He looked earnest, with kind eyes and a stack of flyers in hand. "Daniel, we know you're new to the neighborhood," he began. "But we've seen how Karen's been treating you. A lot of us feel it's time for a change in leadership. Would you consider running for an HOA board position?" I blinked. "Me? Why would I do that? We just moved here." Aaron's companions exchanged glances. One of them, Maria Torres, chimed in. "It might actually be perfect. You're not tied to any old rivalries, so you'd be fair. And we know well, you seem like a stand-up person. But I don't even know the bylaws all that well," I confessed, thinking about that thick binder collecting dust. "That can be learned," Aaron persisted. "We just need a candidate who can present an alternative to Karen's authoritarian ways. You have law enforcement experience, right? People trust that kind of leadership." I hesitated. My mind flashed to Chloe, to Rebecca, and to the relative peace we wanted. But then I remembered Karen's meddling, her constant citations, the petty harassment. How long before she made our lives unbearable? I'm not sure," I said tentatively. "Let me think it over." They left me with the flyers, which outlined a platform for change. More transparency in HOA decisions, less nitpicky enforcement of minor infractions, a friendlier, community-focused approach rather than Karen's draconian style. When I spoke to Rebecca about it that night, she surprised me by saying, "Maybe you should do it. If it means making this neighborhood better, and if enough people support you, maybe it'll solve our Karen problem for good. Or," I countered, "it'll just put a bigger target on our backs. You know she'll take it personally." Rebecca shrugged. "She already has a target on us." She gestured to the stack of warning letters. "What do we have to lose?" Against my better judgment, I decided to throw my hat in the ring. I submitted my candidacy form at the next HOA meeting. That meeting was the first time I publicly stood in opposition to Karen, and I could practically feel the temperature in the room drop when I announced my run for HOA board president. Karen sat at the head of the long meeting table, meticulously typed agenda in front of her, and gave me a tight-lipped smile. "Well," she said sweetly, "I'm sure the community will appreciate having options." But her eyes betrayed her real feelings. Anger, disdain, and perhaps a hint of fear. I remember thinking, this might not end well. Almost immediately after I announced my candidacy, the frequency of HOA citation notices increased. It seemed like every day, we found a new complaint or warning in our mailbox. Grass height violation. The lawn was 3/8 of an inch too long. Trash can placement. Our bin was set out 15 minutes earlier than the allowed time. Improper holiday decor. Our small harvest wreath was not on the approved list of seasonal decorations. I confronted Karen at one of the community events. She was busy chatting with a small group of older residents who seemed to hang on her every word. When she saw me approach, her eyes narrowed. "Karen," I said, careful to keep my tone composed, "these citations are becoming excessive." She gave a measured chuckle. "Daniel, I'm only doing my duty. The HOA must uphold its standards. If you can't follow the bylaws, that's on you. 3/8 of an inch over the grass height limit? That's unbelievably petty." Her lips curved into a smug smile. "The law is the law. Everyone here abides by it. It's a shame you're having such a hard time adjusting to community norms." For the first time, I felt my temper flare in public. "Let's not kid ourselves, Karen. This is harassment. You're using your position to retaliate because I'm running against you. It's not only unethical, it might be illegal." Her face reddened. She took a step closer, lowering her voice so the onlookers couldn't hear. "You think you can march in here and dethrone me? I've held this neighborhood together for 7 years. Don't presume you understand how things work." "I think the neighbors deserve a choice," I said, meeting her gaze. "This isn't a dictatorship." She laughed coldly. "You'll learn soon enough that I don't lose easily." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving a swirl of tension in her wake. A few of the other neighbors looked at me sympathetically, but no one said a word. At home, I tried to be discreet about the mounting stress, but Rebecca and Chloe both saw it. Rebecca was furious. Chloe, for her part, seemed anxious. She confided in me that Karen had even cornered her one afternoon, reminding her not to ride her bike too fast through the neighborhood. "We have a rule about speed limits, young lady," she'd said. "Your father should have told you." That night, after Chloe went to bed, I apologized to Rebecca. "I'm sorry I got us into this. Maybe I shouldn't have run in the first place." Rebecca took my hand. "You had every right to run. Karen's had free rein for so long. People are intimidated. Maybe we can put a stop to her nonsense." I nodded, feeling a surge of resolve. But I also made a mental note to keep my professional life entirely out of HOA politics. No one, aside from Lucy, really knew the depth of my role at the FBI. They just thought I was in law enforcement. I had to keep it that way for safety and confidentiality. If Karen wanted to play dirty tricks, I'd handle it the legal, above-board way. As election day approached, we started noticing strange things happening around our property. A few garden tools went missing from our backyard shed. Our car tires were mysteriously deflated one morning. One night, in the small hours, I heard noises outside and spotted a figure slinking away from our driveway. By the time I got outside, the person was gone, but I found a scratched message on the pavement, "Back OFF." I filed a report with the local police, but without solid evidence or a clear suspect, they couldn't do much. Still, I had an uneasy feeling, especially after discovering tire tracks by the fence. It felt orchestrated. While part of me wanted to confront Karen directly, I lacked proof she was behind any of it. Instead, I hired a local security company to install a motion-activated camera system around the house. I also had a quiet word with Lucy at the FBI, letting her know about the harassment. We agreed it was probably just petty intimidation tactics, but she told me to stay alert. Amidst all this tension, the neighborhood was alive with election fever. Signs sprang up on lawns endorsing either re-elect President Barnett or vote Carpenter for a better HOA. I was touched by the support from many neighbors who had grown fed up with Karen's ways. We held small gatherings in living rooms and backyards, discussing how to bring fairness to the community. Karen, meanwhile, hosted her own grand events at the local community center, extolling her track record of excellence and security. But the real shock came on a cold, gray morning just a week before the vote. I woke up to find Karen's face plastered on a large poster in our own yard, without our permission. In bold letters, it read, "Keep our neighborhood safe. Vote Barnett." I tore the sign out of the ground, furious. Rebecca gasped when she saw it, as if it was a direct invasion of our personal property. And that was exactly how it felt. I decided enough was enough. I marched across the street to her house, but she didn't answer. I knew she was home. Her car was in the driveway, and I heard movement inside. My phone buzzed as I turned to go back home. A text from an unknown number. "Big mistake running against me. Watch your step." My jaw tightened. Whoever was behind this was taking intimidation to a new level. I saved the text, forwarded it to Lucy as an FYI, and tried to go about my day. Meanwhile, I could only guess how far Karen would go to maintain her grip on power. Election day arrived with thick clouds and a threat of rain in the forecast. The Autumn Hills Community Center bustled with activity as residents came to cast their ballots. Tables were set up inside a large meeting hall, and cheerful volunteers handed out voting forms. Meanwhile, Karen's supporters were handing out small pastries, each wrapped in bright plastic and labeled with "Vote Barnett." My supporters offered coffee and donuts that read, "Choose Carpenter." All morning, I chatted with neighbors, calmly encouraging them to vote their conscience. Karen was across the room in a flashy suit, shaking hands and making lofty promises about beautifying the neighborhood. By midday, the tension in the air was palpable. People knew this was the biggest challenge Karen had faced in years. There were whispers that, if she lost, she wouldn't take it gracefully. Around noon, I decided to slip out and grab lunch. Rebecca had gone home to check on Chloe. She texted me that Chloe was finishing homework and then planned to bike over to Aaron Chan's house. Less than an hour later, I got the phone call that would change everything. It was Rebecca, voice trembling with panic. "Daniel, Chloe, someone took her." I nearly dropped my phone. "What do you mean took her? Calm down and tell me exactly what happened." Through sobs, she recounted how Chloe had left on her bike to visit Aaron, only to vanish en route. Aaron texted Chloe a few times, got no answer. Worried, Aaron's mom called Rebecca. They started searching. On the side of the road, they found Chloe's bike tossed in a ditch, the front wheel bent from apparent impact. There was no sign of our daughter. My heart pounded. Kidnapping? In broad daylight. In this supposedly safe neighborhood? I raced to the scene, meeting Rebecca and local police. We scoured the area for any clues, tire marks, footprints, security camera footage from nearby houses. My training as an FBI hostage rescue agent kicked in. I took a deep breath, focusing on the protocol. Even though I was personally involved, I knew better than to let my emotions overshadow the steps needed to secure my daughter's safety. The local police captain recognized me from previous joint operations. He shook my hand firmly. "Agent Carpenter, we'll do everything we can. We've already put out an Amber Alert. We'll coordinate with the FBI as needed." I nodded, jaw clenched. I need to be involved. A wave of dread washed over me as I scanned the quiet street. Autumn leaves swirled in a gust of wind. How could something this terrible happen here, in our own neighborhood? Then my phone buzzed. Another unknown number text. "Resign from the HOA election. If you call the cops, you'll never see her again." My blood ran cold. This was no random kidnapping. It was orchestrated, and the demand was chillingly clear. Drop out of the HOA race, or else. I immediately called Lucy at the FBI, telling her what had happened. She mobilized a specialized team to coordinate with local law enforcement. We combed through every piece of evidence, from the text to the location of Chloe's bike. My mind whirled with questions. Who would do this for an HOA election? Was it Karen herself? Or was it someone she hired? Deep down, I suspected Karen. The entire kidnapping scenario fit the escalation of her intimidation tactics. But was she truly unhinged enough to kidnap a child? That night, I received a phone call from a blocked number. A gruff voice on the line said, "If you want to see your kid, you'll do exactly what we say. First, announce you're withdrawing from the race. Second, you pay us 50 grand. Then you can have your daughter back, if she's still alive." I swallowed, trying not to let fear paralyze me. "I need proof she's alive," I forced out. There was a rustling sound, then my daughter's trembling voice. "Daddy?" Just that one word, filled with terror, made my heart break. Then the phone clicked off. I wanted to punch a wall, but instead I forced myself to stay calm. Every fiber of my being screamed to tear the town apart until I found Chloe. But methodically, I forwarded the call data to Lucy. We started tracing it, though it likely came from a burner phone. At the same time, the kidnappers' demands became public knowledge when word spread that I was being threatened. Neighbors rallied around us, offering support. Some pleaded with me. "Your daughter's life is more important than this stupid election. Just drop out." I understood their concern, but I also knew that if I gave in, these criminals would be emboldened. More importantly, paying them off and simply backing down wouldn't guarantee Chloe's safe return. In many kidnapping scenarios, criminals escalate or change their demands. As an HRT agent, I had seen it happen many times. Though it killed me to prolong this standoff, I decided to hold firm. I covertly arranged for a specialized hostage rescue team to move into position near the neighborhood. Meanwhile, Lucy and the local police's cybercrime unit worked tirelessly to track the kidnappers. We set up phone taps, scoured traffic cams, and compiled every piece of intelligence we could find. The next call came the following night. The same gruff voice repeated the demands, instructing me to make a public statement at the community center the next morning, renouncing my candidacy. "No cops, no FBI, and bring the money," the man warned. I played along. "Fine, I'll do it. But you've got to guarantee my daughter's safety." The man laughed. "No guarantees, buddy. Just do what we say." I hung up, face grim. Then I turned to Lucy. "They're expecting me at the community center tomorrow morning. Let's set up a sting." Before dawn, an FBI hostage rescue team, my own colleagues, arrived in unmarked vans, setting up discreet positions around Autumn Hills. We also had snipers posted on vantage points, hidden in houses whose owners had agreed to help. The plan was for me to show up at the community center, pretend to comply, and draw out the kidnappers. We hoped they'd reveal Chloe's location or try to collect the ransom in person. Rebecca was torn apart by fear and desperation. "I just want Chloe back safe," she sobbed as I hugged her. "Please don't let anything happen to her." I pressed my forehead to hers. "I'll do everything in my power. Trust me." When the time came, I arrived at the community center alone, carrying a duffel bag stuffed with placeholder money, stacks of fake bills we'd arranged for the sting. The room was deserted, except for a single microphone set up near a small stage. My voice echoed in the emptiness. I'm here. I'm ready to make my statement. A new text pinged on my phone. Go to the back corridor. My heart thundered. I replied, I'm on my way, then signaled to the team through a hidden earpiece. Agents readied themselves. As I stepped into the corridor, I spotted a large, rough-looking man wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, standing near a side door. He beckoned me over. You got the money? He asked, voice matching the one on the phone. I held up the duffel. It's all here. Where's Chloe? He sneered, taking a step toward me. First, you do the statement. There's a camera set up in the next room. You go on record, say you're dropping out of the election, then hand me the bag. After that, I'll tell you where the kid is. How do I know you're not lying? He shrugged. You don't, but it's your best shot. From my peripheral vision, I caught a glimpse of movement. FBI agents creeping in, silent as shadows. I could hear Lucy's voice in my earpiece. Hold, hold. I tried to keep the man talking, hoping we could glean Chloe's exact location. Look, just let me talk to her. 1 minute. To be sure she's okay. Not happening, he growled, his eyes flicking to the door. Make the statement. Now. He grabbed my arm, pushing me toward a small room with a tripod camera. The lens stared at me like a black eye. My stomach churned. If I made a public statement under duress, it could complicate everything. But if I refused, I might lose my only link to Chloe. In my earpiece, Lucy's voice crackled. We're outside. Wait for our signal. I had no choice but to stand in front of the camera. The man switched it on. I took a shaky breath, feeling the weight of fatherhood, duty, and heartbreak all at once. I'm Daniel Carpenter, I began, and I'm withdrawing from the HOA election. My hands clenched at my sides. I encourage everyone to support Ms. Barnett. She's the rightful president. The man smirked, flipping off the camera. Now give me the bag. Where's Chloe? I demanded, voice straining. You promised. A loud crash came from behind us. The corridor door burst open. SWAT agents in full gear poured in, guns raised. FBI, don't move. The kidnapper lunged for me, but I swiftly disarmed him with a practiced wrist lock, slamming him to the ground. Adrenaline roared in my ears. Lucy was in the lead, her voice cutting through the chaos. We've got him, Daniel. Where's the girl? She barked, pressing her gun barrel against his head. He spat at her, face twisted. I'm not telling you anything. I clenched my fists. Who hired you? His lips curled into a nasty grin. You already know. My worst suspicions were confirmed at that moment. Karen. He laughed. Took you long enough. Lucy pulled him up roughly. Where are they keeping Chloe? He refused to speak. Another squad of agents quickly searched the community center, but there was no sign of my daughter. We needed answers, and fast. Unbeknownst to us, the entire sting operation had been discreetly reported by local media. A helicopter flew overhead, capturing footage of armed FBI agents pouring into a suburban community center. Soon, national networks picked up the story. FBI hostage rescue commander's daughter kidnapped. Ongoing standoff in Autumn Hills. Karen's manicured facade was about to unravel in the most public way possible. While Lucy and her team interrogated the arrested kidnapper, I received a sudden call on my phone. To my shock, it was Karen, her voice trembling, laced with panic. Daniel, what is happening? Why are the FBI at the community center? I took a steadying breath. You know exactly why. Where's my daughter? She spluttered. What are you talking about? I have no idea. Don't play dumb. Your thug gave you up. Now is your last chance. Tell me where Chloe is, or I swear every law enforcement agency in this country will come down on you. There was silence on the line. Then Karen's voice lowered to a hissing whisper. I only wanted you to back off the election. I didn't mean. Things have gone too far. She's at an abandoned property on the outskirts of town. A red barn. She's safe, for now. My heart pounded. You better pray she's unharmed. Daniel, Karen's voice trembled. I beg you. Please don't ruin me. I hung up, relaying her confession to Lucy. We scrambled into vehicles and sped out to the location Karen had described. A small caravan of local police, FBI vans, and an ambulance followed, sirens wailing. Sure enough, we found an old barn that matched her description. My team surrounded it, weapons drawn. Lucy and I led the approach. Inside, in a corner stall, we found Chloe, tied to a chair, frightened but alive. A wave of relief overwhelmed me as I rushed to her, tears stinging my eyes. We quickly untied her, checking for injuries. Apart from some bruises and dehydration, she seemed physically okay. The cameras hovering overhead captured every moment. Me scooping up Chloe in my arms, the SWAT team securing the building, paramedics rushing in. The story of the HOA Karen, who orchestrated a kidnapping to secure her re-election, was about to explode onto every television screen in America. With Chloe safe, I let the local police and FBI go through the official process of arresting Karen. She was found hiding in her home, in hysterics, trying to shred documents that tied her to the hired criminals. Police arrived with a warrant, escorted by a throng of reporters. There was no denying the evidence. Phone records, text messages, even security camera footage from a gas station where she'd met the kidnapper to pass him money. All the neighbors watched in stunned disbelief as Karen, the Karen, was let out of her home in handcuffs. Gone was the polished, arrogant woman who once roamed the sidewalks, binder in hand, scolding people about paint colors and lawn lengths. In her place was a desperate criminal who had finally been unmasked. She screamed at the cameras, her tears streaking her makeup. "It's all a misunderstanding. I only wanted to protect the neighborhood. This is a setup." No one believed her. The police drove her away, and the crowd slowly dispersed in hushed shock. In less than 24 hours, Autumn Hills had gone from a peaceful suburb to the backdrop of a national drama. I stayed with Chloe at the hospital that night for observation. Rebecca arrived, tears of relief flowing down her cheeks when she saw our daughter resting. I held them both close, silent gratitude filling my heart. It was over. The kidnapper and Karen herself would face a mountain of charges, including conspiracy to commit kidnapping, accessory to kidnapping, and attempted extortion. In the days that followed, a wave of relief and unity swept through Autumn Hills. The residents, long subjected to Karen's tyranny, were appalled at her final, desperate act. The HOA board held an emergency session, during which they stripped Karen of her position and voted in a new interim president until official results could be tallied. As for the election, it turned into a landslide. Even though I had announced my resignation under duress in that forced statement, the board agreed it was made under criminal threats. A formal vote was held again, with watchers from the county present to ensure fairness. I was elected HOA president by an overwhelming majority. Yet there was little celebration in my heart. I wasn't in this for personal gain. I would have happily given up the post just to keep Chloe safe. But the residents insisted that I was the right person to lead them out of this dark chapter. They wanted someone who understood law and order, but valued compassion over control. Karen, meanwhile, sat in a county jail cell, awaiting trial. The prosecution looked airtight. Her bank withdrawals matched the kidnapper's demands, phone records traced back to her, and the kidnapper's testimony confirmed she orchestrated everything. The judge, citing her as a flight risk and a danger to the community, denied bail. On the day of her sentencing, several months later, Rebecca and I showed up to court. Chloe stayed home, still rattled by the ordeal. The courthouse was swarmed by media. Karen arrived in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed, hair disheveled, and eyes rimmed with dark circles. She avoided my gaze, but I could sense the hatred and regret emanating from her. The judge read the charges: conspiracy to kidnap, kidnapping in the first degree, extortion, assault, and more. The maximum penalties were staggering. Karen's lawyer feebly tried to argue that she was manipulated by the criminals, but no one bought it. When the judge passed sentence, 35 years to life, Karen slumped in defeat, tears streaming down her face. But that wasn't all. The court also ruled that any property or financial assets directly linked to the kidnapping scheme could be seized to pay restitution and legal fees. Karen's beloved house in Autumn Hills was put up for auction. Her personal fortune evaporated. In the end, the once powerful president of the Autumn Hills HOA, the self-proclaimed champion of law and order in the neighborhood, was left with nothing. Autumn Hills changed dramatically in the wake of Karen's downfall. As the new HOA president, I moved swiftly to revise outdated rules, adopting a more friendly, reasonable set of guidelines. Where Karen had used the HOA as an instrument of tyranny, we aimed to use it as a vehicle for community improvement. There were still regulations. After all, people liked the tidy aesthetics, but we enforced them with empathy, focusing on actual needs rather than nitpicky violations. Neighbors who once hid indoors, afraid of Karen's scrutiny, now chatted freely in front yards and at block parties. The air felt lighter, as if a suffocating weight had been lifted. Children rode their bikes without fear of being ambushed by a scowling Karen. Holiday decorations once again sprang up in colorful variety. No more approved list nonsense. For my part, I balanced my FBI responsibilities with my role as HOA president. It was a strange double life, but I managed with the help of a newly formed board that shared responsibilities. I made sure that the rules were enforced with fairness, employing 3 friendly reminders, then a fine policy that encouraged compliance without heavy-handed intimidation. Chloe, though shaken, recovered with the help of therapy and plenty of love from Rebecca and me. She resumed her normal life, friends, school, and extracurriculars. Occasionally, she had nightmares about the barn, about hearing her kidnappers' voices. But she slowly regained her confidence, knowing the threat was gone and that her father and mother would keep her safe. And what became of the notorious Karen, Pamela Barnett, after her sentencing? She appealed, of course, but it did her no good. She was left to serve her sentence in a maximum security facility, paying the price for her descent into criminal madness. The media dubbed her the HOA Karen, an emblem of how unchecked power and arrogance could morph into something monstrous. Over time, the story faded from national headlines, replaced by other sensational events. But in Autumn Hills, folks still whispered about it sometimes, shaking their heads in disbelief that an HOA feud could escalate into a kidnapping scheme. When new families moved in, they found a supportive community that looked out for each other, a far cry from the tyrannical environment Karen once cultivated. A year after the incident, on a brisk fall morning, I stood on our porch, watching Chloe ride her bike down the street with Aaron. The leaves were turning crimson and gold, reminiscent of the day she was kidnapped. But now, there was no fear in my heart, only cautious relief that we'd weathered the storm. Rebecca joined me, slipping her arm around my waist. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" I nodded, inhaling the crisp air. "Yeah, it was a nightmare, but we made it through." The phone in my pocket buzzed, a message from Lucy, no doubt about some new FBI assignment. A faint smile tugged at my lips as I thought about the irony of it all. The biggest threat to my family hadn't come from an international criminal enterprise or a high-stakes hostage crisis overseas. It had come from right next door, disguised as a well-dressed, middle-aged woman obsessed with rules and power. But it was over now. Karen was gone, severely punished by the law, property confiscated, name forever tarnished, and our family was safe. The community had risen above fear and intimidation, choosing instead to stand together for what was right. Rebecca rested her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Mr. HOA President." I gave a soft chuckle. Never thought I'd wear that title. She squeezed my hand. "Well, if it means we can live in peace, then it's worth it." I watched Chloe's laughter float through the air as she circled back toward our house. In that moment, I realized something. The greatest gift I could give my family wasn't a perfectly manicured lawn or a house free of HOA citations. It was a safe, loving environment where they could thrive without fear. And in the end, that's what we'd achieved. Autumn Hills, at last, was a true home.